The late afternoon sun cast golden reflections across the pristine waters of Malibu Beach as Nathan Blackwood guided his son, Ethan, through the doors of The Ocean's Edge, an upscale restaurant renowned for its breathtaking views and exquisite seafood. Nathan, a 42-year-old real estate mogul with salt and pepper hair and perpetually tired eyes, had built his empire from nothing. But lately, his greatest challenge wasn't closing multi-million-dollar deals. It was connecting with his 9-year-old son. "I reserved our usual spot," Nathan said, placing a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. The boy nodded silently, clutching his sketchbook to his chest like armor. Since Claire's disappearance 2 years ago, Ethan had retreated into himself, speaking only when necessary and rarely making eye contact with strangers. Nathan had tried everything: child psychologists, adventure parks, exotic vacations, but nothing seemed to break through the wall his son had built around himself. The maître d' led them to a secluded table overlooking the Pacific Ocean. "Will Mrs. Blackwood be joining you today?" he asked, immediately wincing at his own mistake. Nathan shook his head slightly, and the maître d' apologized profusely before retreating. "Draw whatever you want, buddy," Nathan said, sliding the sketchbook toward Ethan. "I'll be right back, okay? Just need to use the restroom." Ethan didn't respond, already opening his sketchbook to a fresh page. Nathan sighed and walked away, his designer shoes clicking against the polished hardwood floor. He didn't notice the new waitress watching them from across the room. Olivia Hayes, 35, with fiery red hair pulled back in a practical bun, had only been working at The Ocean's Edge for 2 weeks. Her once promising career as an illustrator had been put on indefinite hold when her grandmother's health had deteriorated, requiring round-the-clock care and medications that insurance wouldn't cover. Now she juggled 3 jobs: morning shifts at a local bakery, afternoons and evenings at the restaurant, and late nights designing logos for small businesses online. As she approached the table to pour water, Olivia noticed the boys drawing a lighthouse standing alone on a rocky cliff, meticulously detailed, but surrounded by storm clouds so dark they threatened to consume the page. Instead of simply filling the glasses and moving on as protocol dictated, Olivia set down her pitcher and slid into the empty chair across from Ethan. The boy didn't look up. "That's an amazing lighthouse," she said, "but I think it looks a little lonely, don't you?" Ethan's pencil paused mid-stroke, but he didn't respond. Olivia pulled a pen from her apron pocket. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the corner of his sketchbook. After a moment's hesitation, Ethan nudged it slightly toward her. With quick, confident strokes, Olivia began sketching a small boat navigating the turbulent waters below the lighthouse. "See, now someone's coming to visit," she explained as she drew. Sometimes lighthouses might seem lonely, but they're actually heroes. They guide people safely home through the worst storms. Ethan watched her pen move across the paper, his expression shifting from surprise to curiosity. When she added a tiny figure waving from the boat, something miraculous happened. The corners of his mouth twitched upward. "Maybe the lighthouse keeper could have a dog," Ethan whispered, his voice so soft Olivia almost missed it. "That's a brilliant idea," Olivia replied, immediately sketching a playful border collie bounding along the rocky path. "What should we name him?" "Scout," Ethan said without hesitation, his voice growing slightly stronger. "My mum wanted a border collie named Scout, but Dad said we travel too much." Olivia nodded seriously. "Scout is perfect. What else does your lighthouse need?" By the time Nathan returned from the restroom, a brief visit extended by an important business call, he stopped in his tracks at the sight before him. Ethan was gesturing animatedly, explaining something about a secret treasure hidden in a cave beneath the lighthouse, while the waitress added details to what had become an elaborate scene filling the entire page. Most shocking of all was the sound that reached Nathan's ears: Ethan's laughter, bright and unrestrained, a sound he hadn't heard in almost 2 years. "And then the mermaid could be friends with Scout," Ethan was saying, his eyes alight with excitement. "And she warns them about the storm." "Perfect plot twist," Olivia responded, adding the mermaid with a few elegant strokes. She glanced up and noticed Nathan watching them, his expression a mixture of astonishment and something else. Hope, perhaps, or gratitude. She immediately stood up, smoothing her apron. "I'm so sorry, sir. I got carried away. I should be—" "No," Nathan interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. "Please don't apologize." He looked from the waitress to his son, who was still smiling at the drawing they'd created together. "I haven't seen him like this since, in a very long time." Olivia nodded understandingly. "Your son has an incredible imagination. That lighthouse story could be a children's book. Dad, look!" Ethan turned the sketchbook toward his father. "Miss Olivia helped me. Scout is warning the treasure hunters about the hidden rocks." Nathan sat down, studying the vibrant scene they'd created together. "This is amazing, buddy." He looked up at Olivia, noticing for the first time her bright green eyes and the small paint splatters on her hands that her uniform couldn't hide. "Thank you, Miss Olivia." "Just Olivia is fine," she said with a warm smile, "and it was my pleasure. I used to illustrate children's books before." She trailed off, not wanting to burden customers with her personal struggles. "Anyway, can I get you both something to drink besides water?" Throughout dinner, Ethan kept glancing toward Olivia whenever. She passed their table, and Nathan found himself doing the same. She moved through the restaurant with natural grace, somehow managing to be both efficient and unhurried. Whenever she stopped by their table, she had a new sketch to add to their story, or a question about Scout's adventures that made Ethan's face light up. As they were finishing dessert, a chocolate lava cake that Ethan had actually eaten instead of just pushing around his plate, Nathan made a decision. He waited until Olivia brought their check. "We come here every Saturday," he said casually, signing the receipt and adding a tip that made Olivia's eyes widen slightly. "Would you mind if Ethan brought his sketchbook next week too?" Olivia glanced at Ethan, who was looking up at her with hopeful eyes. "I'd be disappointed if he didn't," she replied with a genuine smile. Scout and the mermaid still have many adventures ahead of them. As they drove home along the coastal highway, Nathan glanced in the rearview mirror at his son, who was already adding details to their collaborative drawing in the back seat. "Did you have a good time today, buddy?" Nathan asked. Ethan nodded without looking up. "Can we go back tomorrow?" Nathan felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest, a lightness he hadn't experienced since before Claire disappeared. "Saturday," he promised. "We'll go back on Saturday." "Olivia makes good pictures," Ethan said softly. "Like Mom used to." Nathan tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his throat suddenly constricted. "Yes," he managed to say. "Yes, she does." Over the next 6 Saturdays, the Ocean's Edge became more than just a restaurant to the Blackwoods. It transformed into a sanctuary where Ethan's smile wasn't a rare occurrence but a given. Nathan adjusted his busy schedule religiously, declining business meetings and rescheduling conference calls to ensure nothing interfered with their Saturday lunches. Each visit, Ethan's sketchbook grew thicker with adventures featuring Scout, the Border Collie, the mysterious Mermaid Queen, and an expanding cast of characters that sprang from the collaborative imagination of a quiet boy and a waitress with paintbrush-stained fingertips. By the 7th Saturday, Olivia was waiting for them with a small wrapped package. "I hope you don't mind," she said, handing it to Ethan as they settled at their usual table. "It's just something small I put together." Ethan carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a hand-bound booklet titled The Lighthouse Chronicles Scout's First Adventure. Inside, Olivia had illustrated their story, transforming their rough sketches into vibrant watercolor paintings with text neatly printed beneath each image. "You made our story into a real book," Ethan whispered, running his fingers reverently over the painted lighthouse that matched the one from their first meeting. Nathan leaned over to examine the gift, genuinely impressed by the professional quality. "This is incredible, Olivia. You did all this in your spare time." She shrugged, a light blush coloring her cheeks. "I work on art projects after my grandmother falls asleep. It helps me unwind." "Can we make another one?" Ethan asked, already flipping to the blank pages Olivia had thoughtfully included at the end. "That's the plan," she winked. "Every good story deserves a sequel." As weeks turned into months, Nathan noticed subtle changes in Ethan. The boy who once communicated primarily through nods and shrugs now chatted excitedly about school projects. He'd joined an after-school art club and made his first friend since Claire's disappearance, a quiet girl named Zoe, who shared his love for drawing fantastic creatures. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Nathan received a call from Ethan's teacher, Mrs. Brennan. "Mr. Blackwood," she began, "I wanted to share something remarkable with you. Ethan volunteered to read his story to the class today." Nathan nearly dropped his phone. "He what?" It was something called The Lighthouse Chronicles. He showed everyone the illustrations and even did different voices for the characters. I've never seen him so confident. After hanging up, Nathan sat at his desk, staring out at the San Francisco skyline through the rain-streaked windows of his penthouse office. Something had fundamentally shifted in their lives, and that something had red hair and carried a waitress's notepad. The following Saturday, Nathan arrived at the restaurant earlier than usual. He found Olivia arranging flowers at an empty table, exhaustion evident in the shadows beneath her eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked. She startled slightly, then offered a tired smile. "Just a long week. Gran had some bad days. The insurance company denied her latest treatment again, so I picked up extra shifts at the bakery." "You work at a bakery too?" Olivia nodded. "And I do freelance graphic design at night. It's the only way to cover Gran's medical bills." She straightened her shoulders. "But enough about that. Where's our favorite artist today?" "With his tutor until noon. I actually wanted to talk to you alone." Nathan gestured toward a table. "Do you have a minute?" They sat at a corner table overlooking the ocean. Nathan had rehearsed this conversation multiple times, yet now found himself uncharacteristically nervous. "Ethan's teacher called me this week," he began. "She said he's like a different child, participating in class, making friends. He even read your story to everyone." Olivia's face lit up. "That's wonderful. He's such a special kid. He just needed to find his voice again." "That's just it." Nathan leaned forward. "You helped him find that voice. In 3 months, you've accomplished what therapists couldn't in 2 years. Olivia fidgeted with her apron. "I didn't do anything special. We just connected over art." "Which is exactly why I have a proposition for you," Nathan said. "I'd like to hire you as Ethan's art tutor." Olivia blinked in surprise. "I'm flattered, but I'm not a certified teacher." "You're exactly what he needs," Nathan interrupted gently. "The salary would be enough for you to quit your other jobs and focus on your own art while working with Ethan, plus full benefits that would cover your grandmother's medical expenses." Olivia's breath caught. "That's incredibly generous, but I couldn't accept—" "It's not charity," Nathan assured her. "It's an investment in my son's happiness, and frankly, in my own." Seeing him excited about life again, his voice trailed off, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. After a moment, he continued more steadily. 3 afternoons a week, plus maintaining your artistic practice. I have an unused studio space in my home that would be perfect." Olivia stared out at the ocean, conflict evident in her expression. "Could I think about it?" "Of course," Nathan replied, sliding his business card across the table. "Take all the time you need." 3 days later, Nathan's private line rang as he was reviewing architectural plans for his newest development project. "Mr. Blackwood?" "It's Olivia Hayes." Her voice sounded different over the phone, more professional but still warm. "I'd like to accept your offer, with one condition." "Name it," Nathan said, trying not to sound too eager. "I want to develop a real curriculum for Ethan. Art history, different techniques, museum visits, not just drawing time." She paused. "And I'd like to continue my own work alongside teaching him. It would be good for him to see a working artist's process." "Those sound like 2 conditions," Nathan replied, unable to suppress a smile. "I'm a package deal," Olivia countered, and he could hear the smile in her voice too. 2 weeks later, Olivia stood in the circular driveway of the Blackwood mansion in Pacific Heights, her battered Honda Civic looking comically out of place next to Nathan's collection of luxury vehicles. The mansion itself was a modern masterpiece of glass and steel, somehow managing to appear both imposing and inviting with its clean lines and walls of windows overlooking the bay. Ethan burst through the front door before she could even ring the bell. Olivia, Dad showed me the art room. There's real easels and everything. Behind him appeared an older man in an impeccable suit, his posture rigid and his expression carefully neutral. Miss Hayes, I presume, he said with a clipped British accent. I am Morris, the household manager. Mr. Blackwood asked me to show you around. Just Olivia is fine, she replied, extending her hand. Morris looked at her hand as if she'd offered him a dead fish before reluctantly shaking it. Indeed, please follow me. I'll show you to your workspace. As Morris led her through the mansion, Olivia tried not to gape at the museum-quality art adorning the walls, original pieces by contemporary masters that she'd only ever seen in books. Ethan skipped alongside her, pointing out his favorite spots: the window seat where he liked to read, the hidden nook under the stairs where he sometimes built forts. The art room turned out to be a spacious sunroom with panoramic views of the Golden Gate Bridge, equipped with professional-grade supplies and furnishings that would make any working artist envious. This is incredible, Olivia breathed, running her fingers over a set of Japanese watercolors that cost more than her monthly rent. Dad got everything on the list you sent, Ethan said proudly. Even the special papers from Italy. Morris cleared his throat. Mr. Blackwood had to attend an emergency meeting, but asked me to inform you that dinner will be served at 6 if you would care to join them. Your sessions with Master Ethan are scheduled from 2 until 5, 3 days per week, with additional compensation for any extra activities such as museum visits, which must be approved in advance. The coldness in his tone wasn't lost on Olivia. As Morris turned to leave, she caught him giving her a once-over, his disapproval evident in the slight downturn of his mouth. Don't mind Morris, Ethan whispered once the man was out of earshot. He doesn't like anybody new. He was mean to my last nanny too and my math tutor. Olivia smiled reassuringly. Well, I'm not here to impress Morris. I'm here for our adventures. She unpacked her bag, pulling out a new sketchbook. So what shall we explore today? I was thinking Scout might need to visit the mysterious caves beneath the lighthouse. As Ethan eagerly began describing his ideas, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that Morris was watching them from somewhere. The mansion, for all its beauty and light, held shadows she couldn't quite identify, spaces where the past seemed to linger like a held breath. Later, as she was preparing to leave, she spotted a photograph half hidden behind a larger family portrait in the hallway. A stunning woman with Ethan's same thoughtful eyes smiled at the camera, her arm around a younger, more carefree Nathan. In her other arm, she held a sketchbook remarkably similar to the ones Ethan now treasured. That's my mom, Ethan said quietly, appearing beside her. Dad doesn't like to look at the pictures anymore. Olivia nodded, noting the resemblance between mother and son. She was beautiful, and she was an artist too. The best, Ethan replied simply. She could make anything. Look real with just a pencil. He hesitated, then added in a whisper, Dad said she went away, but I know she wouldn't leave without saying goodbye to me. Not for real. Before Olivia could respond, Morris appeared at the end of the hallway. Master Ethan, your father has called to say he's on his way home. Time to wash up for dinner. As Ethan reluctantly headed upstairs, Morris approached Olivia with measured steps. Miss Hayes, a word of advice, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. This household has experienced enough disruption. The boy is finally regaining a stability. I would hate to see anyone upset that delicate balance with inappropriate curiosities. Olivia met his gaze steadily. I'm here to teach Ethan art, Mr. Morris. That's all. See that it remains so, he replied, his eyes flicking to the photograph of Claire Blackwood. The past is best left undisturbed. As Olivia drove home that evening, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded her of a watercolor palette. She couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay beneath the surface of the Blackwood family and why everyone seemed so determined to keep them buried. As autumn transformed the San Francisco Bay Area, painting the landscape in rich amber and crimson hues, Olivia settled into her role at the Blackwood mansion. 3 afternoons each week, the art studio became a realm of creativity where Ethan flourished, his confidence growing alongside his artistic skills. The shy, withdrawn boy was emerging from his shell, laughing more frequently and even initiating conversations with the household staff, everyone except Morris, whose frosty demeanor had only intensified over the past month. One Wednesday afternoon, as rain pattered against the studio's glass ceiling, Nathan stopped by unexpectedly during their session. He stood quietly in the doorway, watching as Olivia guided Ethan through the technique of cross-hatching. Neither noticed his presence at first, both completely absorbed in the lesson. "See how the shadows create depth," Olivia was saying, her hand gently guiding Ethan's. "Art isn't just about what you put on the paper, it's also about what you leave untouched. Like the stories you tell," Ethan replied thoughtfully. "Sometimes the parts you don't say are the most important." Nathan cleared his throat, and both heads turned toward him. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, smiling at the matching smudges of charcoal on their cheeks. "That's some impressive work, buddy." Ethan held up his drawing proudly. "It's the view from the lighthouse at night. Olivia taught me how to make the moon reflect on the water." "I can see that," Nathan said, genuinely impressed by his son's progress. "It's getting better than mine would be." "You should join us sometime," Olivia suggested, wiping her hands on her already stained apron. "Family art session." Something flickered across Nathan's face, a shadow of memory perhaps. "Maybe someday," he replied. He turned to Ethan. "I actually came to share some news. I have to go to New York next week for an important meeting." Ethan's expression fell immediately. "How long this time?" 3 weeks, Nathan answered, regret evident in his voice. "It's a major development project, and I need to be there in person." He knelt down to Ethan's eye level. "But I was thinking, since you're doing so well with Olivia, maybe we could ask her to spend more time here while I'm gone. Maybe even stay in the guest suite so you wouldn't have to be alone with just Morris and the staff. Would that be okay? With you?" Ethan's face brightened instantly. "Really? Olivia could stay here?" Both adults turned to Olivia, who looked startled by the suggestion. "I'd need to make arrangements for my grandmother," she began, but Nathan waved away her concern. "Already thought of that," he said. "If you're agreeable, I've contacted Golden Sunset Care Home. They have an excellent short-term residency program with 24-hour medical staff, all expenses covered, of course, as part of your compensation package." Olivia opened her mouth, then closed it again, clearly conflicted. "Just think about it," Nathan added quickly. "But I need to know by Friday so I can make all the necessary arrangements." After he left, Ethan looked at Olivia with hopeful eyes. "Please say yes," he whispered. "It gets so quiet here when Dad's away." That evening, Olivia sat beside her grandmother's bed in their modest apartment in Oakland. Eleanor Hayes, once a formidable literature professor with a booming voice that could fill lecture halls, now appeared fragile beneath her quilt, oxygen tubes trailing from her nostrils, but her mind remained sharp as ever. "You're fretting again," Eleanor observed, patting Olivia's hand. "Your forehead gets that little crease just like your mother's did." Olivia smiled despite herself. "The Blackwoods want me to live in their mansion for 3 weeks while Nathan travels for business." Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "And this is causing you distress because it's crossing a line, Gran. I'm Ethan's art teacher, not family." "Yet that boy looks at you like you hung the moon," Eleanor replied. "And from what you've told me, he needs someone who sees him, truly sees him. Not just the quiet broken parts, but the bright creative spirit underneath." Olivia sighed. "There's something else. Something about that house feels off. Morris, the house manager, watches me like I'm going to steal the silver. There are rooms I'm not supposed to enter. And nobody ever mentions Claire, Ethan's mother, even though her absence is like a physical presence in that house." Eleanor studied her granddaughter's face. "Your curiosity always was your strongest trait, and your weakness." She shifted slightly, wincing with the effort. "But consider this. Maybe you were meant to find this family. Maybe that little boy needs exactly what you can give him, someone who understands what it means to lose a parent suddenly." The following morning, Olivia called Nathan and accepted his offer. The guest suite in the east wing of the Blackwood mansion was larger than Olivia's entire apartment, with a private bathroom featuring a marble soaking tub and a balcony overlooking the meticulously landscaped gardens. Morris showed her to the room with barely concealed disdain. "Dinner is at 6:30 sharp," he informed her. "Mr. Blackwood has instructed that Master Ethan should maintain his normal routines in his absence. Bedtime is 8 o'clock on school nights. The staff has been instructed to assist you with anything you require." "Thank you, Morris," Olivia replied, setting her suitcase on the bed. "I appreciate your help." His expression remained impassive. "Indeed. Mr. Blackwood departed early this morning, but left this for you." He handed her an envelope. "He suggested you read it privately." After Morris left, Olivia opened the envelope to find a handwritten note along with a set of keys. Olivia. "Words cannot express my gratitude for what you've brought back into our lives. Ethan trusts you, and so do I. The keys will open any room in the house should you need access. The blue key is for the private studio at the end of the west corridor, Claire's space. I've kept it locked since she disappeared, but perhaps it's time to let some light back in. Use your discretion with Ethan. You'll know when he's ready. Nathan." The next few days settled into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings were spent helping Ethan prepare for school and chatting with him over breakfast before the driver took him to his private academy. Afternoons following his return were dedicated to art lessons, which now expanded throughout the house as Olivia encouraged Ethan to find inspiration in different environments. Evenings were filled with dinner, board games, and reading together before bedtime. On the fourth night, a particularly violent storm battered the coast. Wind howled through the trees, and rain lashed against the windows like angry fingers demanding entry. Olivia was awakened just past midnight by a soft knock at her door. "Ethan? What's wrong?" she asked, finding the boy standing in the hallway clutching his stuffed border collie, a gift from Nathan that resembled the fictional scout. "I had a bad dream," he whispered, eyes wide with residual fear. "About Mom. She was trying to tell me something important, but I couldn't hear her over the storm." Olivia guided him to the window seat in her room, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. Dreams can feel very real, especially during storms like this. Ethan leaned against her. "Dad doesn't like when I talk about Mom. He gets that sad look, and then Morris gives me hot chocolate and changes the subject." Olivia considered her words carefully. "Sometimes people have different ways of handling sadness. Your dad misses your mum very much, and it might be painful for him to talk about her, but that doesn't mean you can't remember her or have questions." "Do you think she's coming back?" Ethan asked in a small voice. The question hung in the air, weighted with longing and hope that Olivia didn't want to crush. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I do know she loved you very much." "How do you know?" Olivia smiled gently. "Because I've seen how she looked at you in the photographs, and because she gave you her talent, her way of seeing the world through. Art, that's a very special gift." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching lightning illuminate the garden in brief electric flashes. Eventually, Ethan's breathing deepened as he dozed against her shoulder. As Olivia prepared to carry him back to his room, he stirred. "Can we go to Mom's studio tomorrow?" he asked sleepily. "Dad gave you the key, didn't he? I heard him talking to Morris about it." Olivia hesitated. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" Ethan nodded. "I dream about her colors sometimes, bright blues and purples. I miss them." The next afternoon, after Ethan's homework was completed, Olivia took the blue key from her pocket. They stood together before the locked door at the end of the west corridor, a space Olivia had passed many times but never approached. "You can change your mind," she told Ethan. "We don't have to do this today." "I want to," he said firmly, though his hand sought hers for reassurance. The key turned smoothly in the lock, and the door swung open with a whisper of protest. Dust motes danced in the shaft of light from the hallway, illuminating a space frozen in time. Sheets draped over furniture like ghosts, and the air held the lingering scent of oil paints and turpentine beneath the mustiness of disuse. Olivia found the light switch, and soft gallery lighting revealed a spacious studio, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. Canvases in various stages of completion leaned against the walls. An easel stood in the center, still holding a half-finished painting covered by a cloth. A desk in the corner was scattered with sketches, brushes standing in jars as if their owner had just stepped out momentarily. Ethan moved through the space reverently, touching his mother's possessions with gentle fingers. "It still smells like her," he whispered. He pointed to a particular shade of blue on a palette that had dried years ago. "That's the color she used for the ocean in all her paintings. She mixed it herself." Olivia moved to the covered canvas on the easel, hesitating before lifting the cloth. Beneath it was a portrait of Ethan, aged around 7, sitting at the lighthouse that had featured in their first drawing together. The background was unfinished, but Ethan's face was rendered with such love and skill that it took Olivia's breath away. "She was working on this before." Ethan trailed off, staring at his younger self. As Olivia studied the painting, something nagged at her subconscious, something familiar about the brushwork, the particular way Claire had captured light and shadow. It reminded her of someone's technique, but she couldn't quite place it. Ethan had moved to the desk, opening drawers and examining their contents. "Look," he said, holding up a brochure. "Mom's art school, the same one you went to." Olivia took the brochure with trembling hands. Printed on the cover was an image of the San Francisco Art Institute's historic campus. Inside was a class schedule with several courses circled in red ink, including Advanced Color Theory with Professor Eleanor Martinez. "Eleanor Martinez was my mentor," Olivia said slowly, the pieces beginning to click together. "She taught me everything I know about color theory." "So you and Mom had the same teacher?" Ethan asked, eyes wide with excitement. "It seems that way," Olivia murmured, flipping through the brochure. A small photo fell out. Claire standing beside an older woman with striking silver hair. Eleanor Martinez had her arm around Claire, both smiling broadly in front of a student exhibition. As they continued exploring the studio, Olivia noticed something odd. All of Claire's more recent work, pieces dated within 6 months of her disappearance, had been removed from their frames, leaving only empty borders. Similarly, several sketchbooks appeared to be missing from an otherwise meticulously organized shelf. "Ethan, do you remember your mum working on any special projects before she left?" Olivia asked casually. The boy shrugged. "She was always drawing in her big black sketchbook, the one with the gold corners." His face clouded. "It disappeared the same time she did. I thought she took it with her." Before Olivia could ask another question, the studio door swung open with a bang. Morris stood in the doorway, his normally composed face twisted with anger. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded, striding into the room. "This area is restricted." Olivia stood her ground. "Nathan gave me permission to bring Ethan here when he was ready." She held up the blue key as evidence. Morris's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Blackwood is not always prudent in his decisions when it comes to his wife's memory." He turned to Ethan. "Young master, Mrs. Wilson has prepared your favorite cookies in the kitchen. Why don't you go have some while I speak with Ms. Hayes?" Ethan looked uncertainly between the adults. Olivia nodded reassuringly. "Go ahead. I'll meet you in the kitchen in a few minutes." Once Ethan had left, Morris turned to Olivia, his voice low and threatening. "You are overstepping your boundaries, Ms. Hayes. You were hired to teach art, not to dredge up painful memories or play detective." "I'm not playing anything," Olivia replied calmly. "I'm following Nathan's explicit instructions to help Ethan process his feelings about his mother through art." "And what about these?" Morris gestured to the brochure and photo still in Olivia's hand. How exactly does discovering your connection to Mrs. Blackdawn found Olivia still awake? Claire Blackwood's diary open on her lap as the first golden rays of sunlight crept across the bay. She had spent the night reading and rereading the elegant handwriting that filled its pages, each entry more disturbing than the last. The beautiful leather-bound book with gold corners, which Ethan had mentioned, wasn't merely a sketchbook. It was a chronicle of Claire's growing fear and paranoia in the months before her disappearance. The early entries painted a picture of domestic bliss, Claire's love for Nathan and Ethan, her excitement about upcoming exhibitions, her creative struggles and triumphs. But around 8 months before she vanished, the tone shifted dramatically. Claire began documenting strange occurrences, missing sketches, rearranged art supplies, the feeling of being watched. Most troubling were her suspicions about Nathan's sister, Victoria Blackwood. May 15th. Victoria arrived unannounced again today. She cornered me in the studio, asking questions about Nathan's new development project in Sausalito. When I mentioned that Nathan was considering my environmental concerns about the wetlands impact, something dark crossed her face. "My brother has always been too soft," she said. "Some sacrifices are necessary for progress." The way she looked at me made my skin crawl. June 3rd. Found Victoria in my studio again, examining my sketches of the coastline. She claimed to be admiring my work, but I caught her photographing the preliminary designs Nathan had asked me to visualize for the eco-friendly aspects of the project. When I mentioned it to Nathan, he laughed it off, saying his sister has always been overly involved in the business. But something doesn't feel right. July 20th. The threatening notes have started again. "Stop interfering" left on my easel. Nathan thinks it's from environmental activists opposed to any development, but the handwriting looks familiar. As the entries progressed, Claire's paranoia intensified. She began hiding her most important work, making copies of documents and secretly meeting with an environmental lawyer. The final entry, dated just 2 days before her disappearance, sent chills down Olivia's spine. September 15th. I've confirmed my worst fears. The Sausalito plans have been altered to remove all the environmental protections. Someone accessed Nathan's computer and changed the submissions to the Planning Commission. The wetlands will be destroyed, endangered species habitats obliterated, all for additional luxury units that will make millions. More in profit. When I confronted Victoria, she didn't even deny it. "You've become a liability," she said. "Nathan needs to focus on the business, not your bleeding heart causes." I'm scared, but I have to tell Nathan the truth. If something happens to me, Eleanor M. has copies of everything. The lighthouse holds the key. Olivia closed the diary, her mind racing. The lighthouse? Could it be the same one from their drawings? And Eleanor M., surely that was Eleanor Martinez, their shared mentor. But the professor had retired to Arizona years ago, according to the last information Olivia had. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Hastily hiding the diary under her pillow, she called, "Come in." Ethan peeked around the door, already dressed for school. "Are you sick? Mrs. Wilson said to let you sleep, but I wanted to make sure you were okay." Olivia, forced to smile, suddenly aware of her rumpled appearance and the dark circles that must be evident under her eyes. "Just stayed up too late reading," she said truthfully. "I'll be down in a minute to have breakfast with you before school." After seeing Ethan off with his driver, Olivia retreated to her room to formulate a plan. She needed to find Eleanor Martinez and discover what Claire had entrusted to her. But first, she needed to understand more about Victoria Blackwood and her relationship with Nathan and Ethan. Mrs. Wilson provided an unexpected opportunity later that morning. "Ms. Hayes," she said hesitantly while bringing Olivia a late breakfast, "I hope you found what you were looking for last night." Olivia studied the housekeeper carefully. "Why did you help me?" The older woman sighed, sitting down at the kitchen table. "I've been with the Blackwoods since before Ethan was born. Claire was like a daughter to me." She twisted her apron in her hands. "Morris has everyone convinced that we shouldn't mention her name, that it upsets Ethan too much. But that boy needs to know his mother didn't abandon him." "You don't believe she left voluntarily," Olivia stated. Mrs. Wilson shook her head firmly. "Claire adored Ethan. She would never leave him willingly." She lowered her voice further. "The night before she disappeared, she came to me, terrified. She'd had a terrible argument with Miss Victoria. I heard raised voices from the study, Claire saying something about illegal changes and going to the authorities. And the next day she was gone," Olivia finished. "Morris told everyone she'd left a note for Mr. Blackwood, saying she needed space, couldn't handle the pressure of being a Blackwood. But I never saw any note, and neither did any other staff member. Olivia processed this information. What about Nathan? Do you think he knows more than he's saying? Mrs. Wilson's expression softened. Mr. Blackwood was devastated. He searched for months, private investigators, police, everything. Ms. Victoria was the one who eventually convinced him to stop, said it was harming Ethan to keep hoping. She stood up, straightening her apron. What's in that diary must be important if Claire hid it so carefully. She was trying to protect something, or someone. Mrs. Wilson, Olivia said carefully, does the lighthouse mean anything to you? Claire mentioned it in her diary. The housekeeper thought for a moment. There's a painting in Mr. Blackwood's study, a lighthouse on a rocky coast. It was the first place he took Claire on a date. I believe it's somewhere up near Mendocino. Claire loved it there. She used to take Ethan for weekend trips sometimes. After Mrs. Wilson left, Olivia made a decision. She needed to find this lighthouse and discover what Claire had hidden there. But she couldn't leave Ethan alone with Morris, whose loyalty clearly lay with Victoria rather than Nathan. The chance to act came sooner than expected. That afternoon, the doorbell rang while Olivia and Ethan were working on a collaborative mural in the art studio. Morris's voice floated up from the foyer, followed by a sharp female voice that made Ethan freeze mid-brushstroke. "Aunt Victoria," he whispered, his face paling. Moments later, the studio door swung open to reveal a striking woman in her early 40s, impeccably dressed in a designer suit, her dark hair cut in a severe bob that emphasized her sharp features. The family resemblance to Nathan was evident, though Victoria's face lacked the warmth that softened her brother's similar features. "Well, isn't this charming?" Victoria drawled, surveying the colorful mural with obvious disdain. Her gaze settled on Olivia, narrowing slightly. "You must be the famous art teacher I've heard so much about." Olivia extended her hand. "Olivia Hayes. It's nice to meet you, Miss Blackwood." Victoria ignored the offered hand. "It's actually Mrs. Harrington Blackwood. I kept my family name professionally." She turned to Ethan, her voice taking on a saccharine quality. "Ethan, darling, don't I get a hug from my favorite nephew?" Ethan dutifully approached his aunt, submitting to her brief embrace with visible discomfort. "Morris tells me you've been exploring your mother's old studio," Victoria said, brushing imaginary dust from her sleeve where Ethan had touched her, dredging up all sorts of memories. "Dad said it was okay," Ethan replied defensively. "Your father doesn't always consider the emotional impact of his decisions," Victoria replied smoothly. "Some things are better left in the past. Especially painful things like your mother's abandonment." Olivia felt a surge of protective anger. "Actually, Ethan has responded very positively to reconnecting with his mother's art. It's been therapeutic for him." Victoria turned her cold gaze fully on Olivia. "And you're qualified to make that psychological assessment, Ms. Hayes, based on your extensive background as a waitress, wasn't it?" Before Olivia could respond, Morris appeared in the doorway. "Miss Hayes, there's an urgent call for you. Something about your grandmother." Alarm shot through Olivia. "Excuse me," she said, hurrying from the room. As she passed Victoria, the woman caught her arm in a grip like steel. "Be careful where you step, Miss Hayes," Victoria murmured, her smile not reaching her eyes. This family has experienced enough disruption. In the hallway, Morris handed Olivia the cordless phone. "It's the care facility," he said, his expression unreadable. "Hello?" Olivia said anxiously. "Ms. Hayes? This is Dr. Patel from Golden Sunset. Your grandmother experienced some respiratory distress this afternoon. Is she all right?" Olivia asked, her heart pounding. "She's stable now, but asking for you. Given her condition, we thought it best to call." "I'll be there as soon as possible," Olivia promised, ending the call. She returned to the studio to find Victoria seated at the work table, flipping through Ethan's sketchbook while the boy stood uncomfortably nearby. "I'm sorry, but I need to go." "My grandmother's not well," Olivia explained, gathering her purse. Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Family emergencies are so inconvenient, aren't they? Morris can drive you." "That won't be necessary," Olivia replied quickly, not wanting to leave. Ethan alone with his aunt. but equally concerned about her grandmother. "I have my car here." Victoria waved a dismissive hand. "Run along then. Ethan and I have lots to catch up on. I'm staying for dinner, possibly overnight." Brotherly, sisterly. "Bonding time when Nathan returns tomorrow." Olivia hesitated, torn between responsibilities. Ethan gave her a small nod as if sensing her dilemma. "Is Gran okay?" he asked softly. "She will be," Olivia replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I'll be back as soon as I can." "Take all the time you need," Victoria said, with a predatory smile. "We'll be just fine." The drive to Oakland took over an hour in rush-hour traffic, giving Olivia ample time to worry about both her grandmother and what Victoria might be up to at the Blackwood mansion. By the time she reached Golden Sunset, the sky had darkened with the approach of another storm. Dr. Patel met her in the lobby. "She's much better now," he assured Olivia. "The new medication we started has stabilized her breathing considerably." Eleanor was sitting up in bed when Olivia entered her room, looking frailer than ever but alert. "There's my girl," she said, extending a thin hand. "I told them not to frighten you, but doctors never listen to old women." Olivia embraced her grandmother carefully. "You gave me quite a scare." Eleanor's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Necessary, I'm afraid. We need to talk privately." She glanced meaningfully at the door. Once a nurse had checked Eleanor's vitals and left them alone, the elderly woman pulled Olivia closer. "Someone came looking for you here yesterday," she whispered. "A very proper British gentleman who claimed to be confirming your grandmother's care arrangements on behalf of the Blackwoods." "Morris," Olivia breathed. "What did he want?" He asked. "A lot of questions about your background, your relationship with me. Seemed particularly interested in whether you had connections to Claire Blackwood." Eleanor's grip tightened on Olivia's hand. "I played the confused old lady, but he was fishing for something specific." Olivia quickly filled her grandmother in on everything she'd discovered, including the diary and the connection to their shared mentor. "I need to find Eleanor Martinez," she concluded. "Claire entrusted her with something important before she disappeared." Eleanor's expression grew grave. "Ellie Martinez died last year, my dear. Alzheimer's took her mind long before her body gave out." Olivia's hope deflated. "Then whatever evidence Claire gathered is lost." "Not necessarily," Eleanor said thoughtfully. "You mentioned a lighthouse. There's a famous one near Mendocino, Point Cabrillo. Ellie used to take her advanced students there for weekend workshops. Said the light and atmosphere were perfect for teaching color theory." "That has to be it," Olivia said excitedly. "Mrs. Wilson mentioned Claire would take Ethan to a lighthouse up the coast." "Be careful, Olivia," Eleanor warned. "If what you suspect about Victoria Blackwood is true, you could be putting yourself in danger by investigating." "I have to do this, Gran, for Ethan." Olivia checked her watch. "I should get back to the mansion. Victoria's there with Ethan and I don't trust her." Eleanor nodded understandingly. "Go, but promise me you'll call Nathan as soon as he returns. Don't try to handle this alone." As Olivia prepared to leave, the care facility's power flickered ominously. Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Hayes, I'd advise against traveling right now. The storm's intensified and they're predicting flash floods along the coastal highway." Olivia checked her phone to find severe weather alerts flooding the screen. A quick text to the Blackwood house confirmed her fears. The road to Pacific Heights was already flooded in sections. She was stranded in Oakland for the night, while Ethan remained at the mansion with Victoria and Morris. "Try not to worry," Eleanor soothed, seeing Olivia's distress. "The boy has survived his aunt's visits before. Focus on what you can control." Olivia spent a restless night in a chair beside her grandmother's bed, the diary hidden safely in her bag. The storm raged throughout the night, pounding the windows with sheets of rain and causing sporadic power outages across the Bay Area. Each time Olivia dozed off, she dreamed of lighthouses and hidden sketchbooks, of a woman with Ethan's eyes, whispering urgent secrets. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind flooded roads and power outages, but no serious damage. Olivia's phone chimed with a text from Nathan. "Landing in SF in 2 hours. Everything okay there? She replied, "Simply, need to speak with you urgently when you return. Found Claire's diary." His response came immediately. "Where?" "Hidden in window seat. Contains serious allegations about Victoria. Will explain in person." There was a long pause before his next message appeared. "Stay with Ethan. Trust no one else. On my way." As Olivia navigated her Honda through puddles and debris on the highway back to San Francisco, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was racing against an invisible clock. Claire's diary weighed heavily in her bag, its secrets now partially revealed but still dangerous in their incompleteness. What she couldn't know, was that back at the Blackwood mansion, Victoria was already making her move. While Ethan slept soundly, thanks to the special hot chocolate Morris had prepared at Victoria's instruction, the imposing woman stood in Claire's studio, phone pressed to her ear. "She knows too much," Victoria hissed to the person on the other. "And the waitress found Claire's diary." "No, I don't know how much she's told Nathan, but he's flying back early." She paused, listening. "No, that won't be necessary. I have a better idea. History has a way of repeating itself, doesn't it? By the time Nathan arrives, our little problem will have disappeared." Outside, the clouds parted, allowing a single beam of sunlight to illuminate the bay. In the distance, barely visible on the northern horizon, stood the silhouette of a lighthouse, patient, vigilant, waiting to reveal its secrets. Olivia's tires splashed through puddles as she accelerated up the winding driveway to the Blackwood mansion. The morning sun had emerged from behind the dissipating storm clouds, casting the imposing structure in a deceptively peaceful light. Her conversation with Nathan had left her uneasy. His terse messages suggested he wasn't entirely surprised by the revelations about his sister, which raised even more questions. As she parked beside Victoria's sleek black Mercedes, Olivia noticed the house seemed unusually quiet. No staff moved behind the windows, no sounds of breakfast preparation emanated from the kitchen. The front door stood slightly ajar, a detail that instantly triggered her alarm bells. "Ethan?" she called, stepping cautiously into the foyer. Her voice echoed through the empty space. "Mrs. Wilson, Morris." A faint sound from upstairs drew her attention. Moving swiftly up the grand staircase, Olivia followed the noise to Ethan's bedroom, where she found Mrs. Wilson kneeling beside the boy's bed, her face etched with worry. "Thank goodness you're back," the housekeeper whispered, gesturing to Ethan's sleeping form. "He won't wake up properly." Miss Victoria said he had trouble sleeping last night, so she gave him some of her special tea. When I couldn't rouse him for breakfast, she said to let him sleep, that he was exhausted from their late-night art session. Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, gently shaking Ethan's shoulder. "Ethan, sweetheart, it's Olivia." His eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. Sleepy," he mumbled, turning his face into the pillow. "Where is Victoria now?" Olivia asked, a chill running down her spine. "She and Morris left about 20 minutes ago. Said they needed to pick something up before Mr. Blackwood's return." Mrs. Wilson wrung her hands nervously. She dismissed all the other staff for the day, gave them an unexpected paid holiday. "It's just us here now." Olivia checked Ethan's pulse, steady but slow. His breathing was deep and regular. Whatever Victoria had given him appeared to be a powerful sedative rather than anything immediately dangerous, but the situation was clearly no coincidence. "Nathan's landing soon," Olivia told Mrs. Wilson. "Can you stay with Ethan while I make a quick call? Try to wake him gently. Talk to him, open the curtains, maybe a cool cloth on his forehead." In the hallway, Olivia dialed Nathan's number, relieved when he answered immediately. "Olivia? What's wrong?" His voice was tense. "Airport." Announcements audible in the background. "Victoria's drugged Ethan with something. He's sleeping heavily but seems otherwise okay. She and Morris have left the house and she sent away all the staff." A sharp intake of breath. "Are you certain?" "Mrs. Wilson is with him now. Nathan, I think Victoria knows I found the diary. She's planning something." "Listen carefully," Nathan said, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "There's an emergency safe room in my study, behind the bookcase on the east wall. Get Ethan there and lock yourselves in. The combination is Ethan's birthday, 0924. Don't open it for anyone except me. What about Mrs. Wilson? Take her too. If you can, but Ethan is the priority. I'm getting into a car now, 20 minutes, 30 tops. Olivia returned to Ethan's room to find Mrs. Wilson had managed to rouse him to a drowsy half-consciousness. Hey, buddy, Olivia said, kneeling beside him. Think you can walk a little bit? We need to play a special hiding game. Ethan blinked slowly, his movements sluggish. Hide and seek, he murmured. Like with Scout? Exactly like that, Olivia confirmed, helping him to his feet. Mrs. Wilson, can you help me get him to Nathan's study? Between them, they managed to guide the still groggy boy down the corridor toward the study. As they passed Claire's studio, Ethan suddenly stopped, pulling weakly against their supporting arms. Wait, he said, his speech slightly slurred. Need to show you something. From last night. Later, sweetheart, Olivia urged. We need to... It's important, Ethan insisted with surprising clarity. About Mom. Aunt Victoria showed me. Olivia and Mrs. Wilson exchanged concerned glances. Quickly then, Olivia conceded, using the blue key to unlock Claire's studio. The space had been disturbed since their last visit. Canvases had been rearranged. Drawers left open, papers scattered across the floor. Ethan shuffled to the easel that still held Claire's unfinished portrait of him. There, he said, pointing to the canvas. Aunt Victoria showed me what Mom wrote. Olivia moved closer, examining the portrait carefully. Nothing seemed changed at first glance, but when she turned the canvas over, she found a message written in black marker across the wooden frame. The lighthouse keeper knows the truth. Victoria asked me lots of questions about our lighthouse. Stories, Ethan explained, seeming to grow more alert as he spoke. She got really excited when I told her about Scout and the Keeper and all our adventures. Said Mom used to tell me lighthouse stories too. The implication struck Olivia like lightning. Victoria had figured out the lighthouse connection. She hadn't left to prepare for Nathan's arrival. She was heading to Point Cabrillo to find whatever Claire had hidden there. We need to move now, Olivia said urgently, helping Ethan toward the door. As they stepped into the hallway, the unmistakable smell of smoke reached their nostrils. Mrs. Wilson gasped, "Fire!" Thin tendrils of grey smoke were curling up the staircase from the floor below. The smoke detector suddenly shrieked to life, its piercing alarm echoing through the house. The safe room, Olivia reminded them, steering Ethan toward the study with renewed urgency. Quickly! Inside Nathan's elegant study, Olivia located the bookcase on the eastern wall. 0924, she muttered, pressing the numbered buttons hidden behind a copy of Great Expectations. With a soft click, the bookcase swung inward, revealing a steel-reinforced room equipped with surveillance monitors, communication equipment, and emergency supplies. Get in, Olivia instructed, helping Mrs. Wilson guide Ethan into the safe room. The boy was more alert now, fear clearing the fog of sedation from his system. What about you? Mrs. Wilson asked, as Olivia stepped back into the study. I need to make sure the fire department is coming, Olivia replied, already dialing 911 on her phone. And Nathan needs to know what Victoria's doing. Lock this behind me and don't open it for anyone but Nathan, understand? Before they could protest, Olivia closed the bookcase door, hearing the satisfying click of its automatic lock engaging. Through the door, she called, "I'll be right back, stay there." The 911 operator answered as Olivia raced down the corridor. "Fire at the Blackwood Mansion in Pacific Heights," she reported breathlessly, giving the address. At least one fire on the ground floor, 3 people inside. After hanging up, she called Nathan again. "Victoria's figured out the lighthouse connection. She's headed to Point Cabrillo, and she set fire to the house." Nathan's curse was explosive. "Are you in the safe room?" "Ethan and Mrs. Wilson are. I need to make sure the fire doesn't spread before help arrives." "Nathan, if Victoria reaches the lighthouse first..." "I'll handle Victoria," he interrupted grimly. "Get yourself somewhere safe, Olivia." please." The smoke was thickening as Olivia descended the stairs, crouching low to avoid the worst of it. The fire appeared to have started in the living room, strategically placed to block the main exit, and spread quickly through the central part of the house. Grabbing a fire extinguisher from the kitchen, Olivia managed to contain the worst of the blaze, but smoke continued to pour from smoldering furniture. As she heard sirens in the distance, Olivia was struck by a realization. Claire's diary was still in her car. If firefighters restricted access to the property, she might not be able to retrieve it. More importantly, if Victoria had indeed headed to Point Cabrillo, someone needed to stop her from destroying whatever evidence Claire had hidden there. Making a split-second decision, Olivia texted Nathan, "Fire under control, firefighters arriving, going to lighthouse to stop Victoria." His response was immediate, "Too dangerous, wait for me." But Olivia knew there wasn't time to wait. As firefighters swarmed the driveway, she slipped out a side door, circled around to her car, and sped away before anyone could stop her. The Pacific Coast Highway stretched before her, a ribbon of asphalt winding north toward Mendocino and toward answers that had been hidden for 2 long years. The 3-hour drive to Point Cabrillo gave Olivia ample time to second-guess her decision. She was heading toward a confrontation with a woman who had potentially orchestrated Claire's disappearance, possibly worse, and who had already demonstrated a willingness to endanger a child, her own nephew, to protect her secrets. But the alternative, allowing Victoria to destroy the last pieces of Claire's truth, was unthinkable. Olivia's phone buzzed repeatedly with calls from Nathan, which she answered on speaker. "The fire department has the blaze under control," he reported. "Ethan and Mrs. Wilson are safe. Where are you now?" "About an hour from Point Cabrillo," Olivia replied, her eyes fixed on the coastal road ahead. "Nathan, Claire's diary mentioned Victoria tampering with your development plans, removing environmental protections for wetlands in Sausalito to increase profits. Did you know about this?" A heavy sigh crackled through the speaker. "I suspected something wasn't right with those plans, but I didn't know Victoria was behind it. When several environmental groups protested the sudden changes, I launched an internal investigation. That's what my trip to New York was partly about, meeting with forensic accountants who've been tracking discrepancies in our corporate accounts." "You think Victoria has been embezzling?" "I think my sister has been manipulating company records, projects, and possibly finances for years," Nathan replied grimly. "Claire must have discovered proof of her activities. But why would Victoria go to such extremes? Why not just fire Claire or discredit her somehow?" "Because Claire wasn't just my wife. She was my environmental conscience and a respected voice in the art world. If she went public with evidence of corporate misconduct, it would have been devastating. Victoria's reputation means everything to her." Nathan paused. "And there's something else you should know. If anything happens to me, Victoria becomes Ethan's guardian and trustee of his inheritance until he turns 25. The implication was chilling. "You think she'd harm her own brother? I think my sister stopped seeing family as anything but assets and liabilities a long time ago," Nathan replied soberly. "I'm about 2 hours behind you. The police are meeting me at Point Cabrillo. Don't try to confront Victoria yourself." But as Olivia crested the final hill overlooking the historic lighthouse, she spotted Victoria's black Mercedes already parked in the small lot. A familiar figure in an impeccable suit was striding purposefully toward the lighthouse keeper's residence. "She's already here," Olivia told Nathan. "I can't wait for you." "Olivia, don't—" She ended the call and pulled into the parking area, hiding her Honda behind a maintenance shed. The Point Cabrillo light station was typically busy with tourists, but the recent storm had left the historic site temporarily closed, access roads still being cleared of debris. Only the lighthouse keeper and maintenance staff would be present. Moving quickly but cautiously, Olivia followed Victoria's path toward the keeper's residence. Through the window, she could see Victoria engaged in intense conversation with an older man, presumably the lighthouse keeper. Even from a distance, the man's body language suggested discomfort as Victoria loomed over him, her expression hard and demanding. Olivia approached the side of the building, seeking a window where She might overhear their conversation without being seen. Rain-slick rocks made the footing treacherous, and she nearly slipped several times as she edged around the historic structure. "I don't care about your rules or regulations," Victoria's sharp voice carried through a partially open window. "That woman left something here, and I need to find it. Surely you remember Claire Blackwood, dark-hair artistic, visited with her young son." "Many visitors come through here, ma'am," the keeper replied evenly. "I couldn't possibly remember everyone." "Don't play games with me," Victoria snapped. She would have asked to leave something in safekeeping, something important. "I'm sorry, but unless you have proper authorization—" "Perhaps this will refresh your memory," Victoria interrupted, and though Olivia couldn't see from her position, the keeper's suddenly cooperative tone suggested a substantial bribe had been offered. "Well, there was a woman matching that description about 2 years back," he admitted reluctantly. "She had her boy with her, creative type. She asked if she could leave something in our historical archives, said it was research for a children's book about lighthouses." "And did you accommodate her request?" Victoria pressed. The keeper hesitated. "Against protocol, yes. She was quite insistent, and the boy was so enthusiastic about lighthouses. She left a sealed package with instructions that it should only be given to her son, when he turned 18, or to someone named Eleanor." "Martinez!" "Where is it now?" Victoria demanded. "In the secure archive room with the historical documents, but I really can't release it without proper—" "I'm her sister-in-law," Victoria interrupted smoothly. "Surely that's close enough. The family has been searching for Claire's belongings since her tragic passing." Olivia froze. Victoria was claiming Claire was deceased, a convenient lie to gain access to whatever Claire had hidden. "I wasn't aware she had passed," the keeper said sadly. "The little boy seemed so attached to her. What a shame." "Yes, very tragic. Now the package—" Olivia knew she had to act quickly. Moving from her hiding place, she rounded the corner and entered through the front door, catching Victoria and the keeper by surprise. "She's lying," Olivia announced, stepping into the room. "Claire Blackwood isn't dead. She disappeared under suspicious circumstances, and this woman may be responsible." The keeper looked between the two women in confusion. "What's going on here?" Victoria recovered quickly, her smile turning glacial. "Ms. Hayes, what an unpleasant surprise. Following me now, that seems rather unstable." "I know about the altered development plans," Olivia said steadily. "Claire discovered what you were doing and gathered evidence before she disappeared. That's what she hid here." Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Richard," she addressed the keeper, "this woman is a disgruntled former employee of our family, recently fired for inappropriate behavior around my nephew, clearly unstable, as I mentioned." "That's not true," Olivia protested. "I'm Ethan's art teacher. I found Claire's diary, which details Victoria's corporate sabotage and threats against—" "Claire!" The keeper backed away from both women. "Ladies, I don't know what's happening here, but I want no part of a family dispute. Perhaps you should both leave, and we can sort this out with proper authorities." "A reasonable suggestion," came a deep voice from the doorway. Nathan Blackwood stood there, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled from his hasty journey. Behind him stood 2 uniformed police officers. Victoria's composure slipped momentarily before she recovered, smoothing her expression into one of relief. "Nathan, thank goodness you're here. This woman has been making wild accusations." "Stop." "Victoria," Nathan said quietly, "I've read Claire's diary. I know what you did." Victoria stiffened. Whatever Claire wrote was clearly the product of paranoia. You know how unstable she became toward the end. "The only unstable element in our family was you," Nathan replied. "The forensic accountants found everything. The altered plans, the offshore accounts, the systematic embezzlement. It's over." For a moment, Victoria's mask of sophistication cracked completely, revealing the cold calculation beneath. "You always were too soft for this business," she hissed. "Claire made you." Weak with her environmental crusades and artistic sentimentality, I was protecting our legacy. By committing fraud? By threatening my wife until she felt she had to run away? Nathan's voice rose with rarely displayed anger. "I never touched your precious Claire," Victoria sneered. "She ran because she was weak, couldn't handle the pressure of being a Blackwood." "That's not true," said a new voice, soft, melodious, and achingly familiar to those who knew it. Everyone turned toward the lighthouse entrance, where a slender woman with dark hair, cut in a short, practical style, stood framed in the doorway. Though thinner than in the photographs at the Blackwood mansion, and dressed simply in jeans and a weathered jacket, there was no mistaking her identity, especially when her eyes, so like Ethan's, fixed on Nathan with a mixture of fear and hope. "Claire," Nathan whispered, his voice breaking. Claire Blackwood stepped into the keeper's residence, her gaze never leaving her husband's face. "I never wanted to leave," she said softly, "but Victoria made it clear what would happen if I went public with what I'd found. She said she'd make sure I lost custody of Ethan in a very public, very ugly legal battle, that she'd use her connections to paint me as mentally unstable, unfit to be a mother." "You disappeared without a word," Nathan said, pain evident in his voice. "I searched everywhere for you. I left you clues," Claire replied. "The lighthouse stories I always told Ethan, the messages through Eleanor Martinez. But Morris intercepted everything. He was working with Victoria from the beginning." Victoria's face had gone ashen. "This is absurd. You have no proof." "But I do," Claire interrupted, turning to the lighthouse keeper. "Richard, do you remember the package I left with you? I think it's time it was opened." Richard nodded, disappearing momentarily before returning with a sealed archival box. Claire took it, her hands trembling slightly as she broke the seal and removed its contents. A waterproof case containing USB drives, printed documents, and a heartbreakingly simple hand-drawn card signed "Love, Ethan." "Everything is here," Claire said, handing the materials to Nathan. "Financial records, altered documents, recordings of Victoria's threats. I made copies of everything before I left." The police officers stepped forward, taking the evidence and addressing Victoria. "Mrs. Harrington Blackwood, we need you to come with us for questioning regarding corporate fraud and criminal threats." As the officers led a stone-faced Victoria away, Nathan and Claire stood facing each other, 2 years of absence stretching between them like an unbridgeable chasm. "Why here?" Nathan finally asked. "Why today?" "Eleanor Martinez's niece contacted me when she died," Claire explained. "She found my new contact information in Eleanor's effects, when she told me a woman named Olivia Hayes was teaching art to my son and had the same mentor I did. It felt like the universe was offering a connection. I've been watching from a distance, trying to find the right moment to come back." She swallowed hard. "I've been living in a small coastal town just north of here, teaching art under a different name. Ethan never stopped believing you'd return," Nathan said softly. "And you?" Claire asked, her voice barely audible. Nathan moved forward, closing the gap between them in 2 long strides. "I never stopped loving you," he said simply before gathering her in his arms. Olivia stepped outside, giving the reunited couple privacy as tears of relief burned behind her eyes. The lighthouse stood tall against the clearing sky, its beam no longer needed in the bright afternoon sun, but ready to guide the way when darkness fell again. Her phone vibrated with a text from Mrs. Wilson. "Ethan asking for you. Fire damage. Minimal. Is everything all right?" Olivia smiled through her tears as she typed her reply. "Everything is perfect. We're bringing his mother home.